What we're gonna do right here is go back, way back into time.
This is Butch Slaughter, and you're listening to the echoes of Indiana Avenue. Welcome to my neighborhood, the Avenue. I grew up here, and each week I'll be sharing the sounds and stories of the people that made the Avenue great. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, a generation of young black women created a new sound in American popular music. This new music emerged from a mix of doo-wop, rock and roll, rhythm and blues, and pop music. Music journalists would eventually label this sound as girl group music. The early 1960s are considered the golden age of girl group music. During this time, girl group acts dominated the top 40 charts. The Chordells, the Marvelettes, the Crystals, the Ronettes, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, the Supremes. These are just a few of the many groups that achieved fame during this era. Naptown had its own girl group scene, and the Avenue was filled with talented young women who dreamed of being the next Diana Ross. There were groups like the Royalettes, the Del Cadens, the Chordells, the Chordells, the Roulettes, and the Lockettes. On this week's show, we'll be looking back at some of the most successful girl groups to emerge from the Avenue, including the Pearls, the Indys, the Stovall sisters, and the Chordells. Let's get things started with an Avenue group that helped to kickstart the local girl group scene. From 1954, this is the Hampton sisters with Hey Little Boy.
Hey little girl, do ya wanna ride? Hey little girl, would ya love a ride? Cool Johnny Jones got a new Cadillac, a two-tone job, cherry red and black. And as he cruised down the street one fine day, who got it live? Daisy Mae, he cried, hey little girl, do ya wanna ride? Hey little girl, would ya love a ride? He said to her, gee, you're kinda cute, so get in, get in, get in. Hey little girl, how about a kiss? You've never been on a ride like this. No little boy, and from what we've heard, she won't kiss for pretty words. They rolled and rolled around the clock, and he kept going faster. Daisy squealed in sheer delight. Wait, Johnny faster, but Johnny was no square, no jerk, cool and very serious. He knew how the big was worked. He played mysterious. Hey little girl, what you doing tonight? She looked at him, said, go fly a kite. He stopped the car, then he said, get out, get out, get out, get out. You've had your ride, I hope you're satisfied. You spoil my day, cause you wouldn't play. Don't you wanna take a ride another day? Goodbye, Johnny. Goodbye.
That was the Hampton sisters with Hey Little Boy. In just a moment, we'll hear from Ethel McCane, a co-founder of the Chordells. But first, Let's listen to their 1962 single, Quit While You're Ahead. That was the Chordells with their 1962 single, Quit While You're Ahead, released on the Tiger Records label. WFYI's Kyle Long recently spoke with the Chordells' co-founder, Ethel McCane. They discussed Ethel's early life growing up in the Martindale neighborhood and her teenage years singing on the avenue.
Where did you live?
Lived on the east side, just off of, I grew up around, if you know the area's going through regentrification now, around 20th and Columbia and Martindale. What used to be Martindale is now Andrew J. Brown Avenue.
Very familiar with that area, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about what's going on there now? You mentioned the gentrification.
Yeah, yes, I understand that, the neighborhood is changing from when I grew up there. It was mostly black people in that area, and businesses, you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It was, but when we were growing up, it was a neighborhood. It was just what we knew, you know what I'm saying? So... And our church was right around the corner from where most of us lived, or right up the street. We could walk to church back then. And the Chordells pretty much grew up at Scott United Methodist Church, what's now Scott United Methodist Church. So, and as far as the things that are going on there now, that's good. Neighborhoods change,
Did you go down and listen to music at Schofield at the skating rink?
Yes, we were there. We performed a couple times at Schofield.
Wow.
At the skating rink.
What was that like?
It was interesting, and you have to remember now, I'm telling you from memory from over half a century ago, okay? So, most of that, we didn't continue in the entertainment field, if you will, but it was, I don't think during the time that we were doing these things with the Chordells and, entertaining around the city or whatever, it just wasn't a real big deal to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you were just living your natural life and weren't thinking about it, that it would one day disappear and be historically important to people 100 years down the line.
Yeah, we really didn't, at all. And I liked music. from early on in my life, I like to write. I like poetry. I do poetry now, too. But I like writing poetry, and I like writing music. So while I was in high school, I decided to round up a few of my buddies and put a singing group together.
Was the Chordells your first group?
That was it. My first organization. We organized and put things in place to just sing our own music. We pulled music off of the radio by other black female groups, you know, and my buddies, I call her still my friends now, Marjorie and Beverly Davis. They were sisters. Lived around the corner from me, and another friend, Elaine Brown, and then I, and our original keyboardist at the time was a brother named Kenny Lewis. And we would gather at my house and rehearse, work on music that either I had written, little songs I had written, or stuff by the Chordells, or, you know, Martha and the Vandellas, or whomever. And sometimes we'd be singing a cappella.
Was it in 1959 you formed? Does that sound correct?
Yeah, around 58 or 59. Yeah, around 59. And we had maybe a little earlier than that, maybe around 57 or 8, around in there. And because they were we were all still in high school, and I was a senior at the time. So we had a run, about a 4-year run from about 58 to 62, you know.
Where did you go to high school?
Crispus Attucks.
You did go to Attucks, yeah. Were you studying music in the great music department there?
I sure was not.
You were not? You didn't?
I was not. Right to this day, I don't know one note from the other, but I write music, if you can figure that.
How did you pick up that skill without studying in school?
I knew what I liked, and we recorded it. We had little recorders. I would write the words and sing the music the way I wanted it, and our little pianist would pick it up, and that's the way we learned. We just liked making music, and went all over town doing that, you know. Yeah,
you mentioned you played at the skating rink on Schofield. Where else were you playing? I know you did some things on the Avenue. Where all would you play?
Yes, we would be. We sang a few times at Attucks, at Crispus Attucks. We sang for little talent contests and talent shows and so forth at Crispus Attucks, and at the Walker Theater. We sang there a few times, and then at house parties and just wherever. If we find out somebody's having a party on the other side of town, we'd show up over there, and people would say, "The Chordells are here. You guys going to sing?" So we did, you know.
So you weren't necessarily singing in nightclubs. You were singing in more all ages, sort of family-friendly environments.
Yeah, because most of us, and you know, I was the oldest, but at the time we started, we were underage. We shouldn't have been in. One time we had a gig, and I won't even tell you where, but anyway, we weren't supposed to be in there singing, but we were. And we just gathered to have a good time and be together and enjoy each other and enjoy music. We became a little family, if you will.
And you went pretty far with the group. You made a single on the Tiger Records label, Quit While You're Ahead, and Yeah, I Was Blind. How did the opportunity to record that single come about?
Well, you know, we had a gentleman showed up, Jan Hutchins, I think so, huh?
Yeah.
He became our manager, if you will, and he wrote one of those songs. I may have written both of them, but anyway, he wrote those, and we practiced and learned them, and rode up to Chicago one day and recorded it. And never did we imagine that it would go anywhere. Because shortly after recording, that was one of the last things we did. We did a couple of 2 or 3 gigs on the Avenue after then, you know, but pretty much disbanded after about 4 years. But we did, put out this record. And frankly, I thought this record had just gone into Neverland till I was online about 3 years ago. I was online, and I Googled this record, the title, and up comes the Chordells and this song, Quit While You're Ahead. I called Lester. You know Lester.
Lester Johnson played bass from the Ebony
he
Rhythm
was our
Funk
bass
campaign,
player.
right? Yeah.
And he said, well, Ethel, I told him where I found it was from some record company over in the UK. And I said, I can't believe this. I said, I can't believe it's out here because, frankly, I mean, we weren't trying to push it anywhere at the time. And when we recorded it, we said, nobody's going to buy this record. And that's a terrible thing to think about your work, but...
You weren't able to get any airplay for the record in Indianapolis, or...
No, not really, I don't know if it,
And a lot of the articles that appeared in the Recorder and later in the Indianapolis Star referred to the Chordells as a rock and roll group. Is that how you thought of it?
We called ourselves a doo-wop group.
Yeah, a doo-wop group. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, Ethel, that you wrote some of your own music. Did you want to get that recorded? What was your kind of goal with your own personal compositions?
It really wasn't at that time. I'm telling you, we just enjoy, when we really organized, we just enjoyed singing together and going around town singing together. We never thought further than that, if you will, or becoming the Supreme someday. It seemed like that wasn't in our future anyway. But we just the songs I wrote, I just enjoyed writing and letting writing and hearing my work being done by my friends, and so that's pretty much the way we were. We get to my house and rehearse half the night. Sometimes have just Kenny with us, and sometimes have a full band there, Kenny and Lester. And Lester was with a group at that time called the Continentals. Mm. And so sometimes we would be places, and we would do gigs, and they would play with us, and sometimes only the keyboardist. We had that group that Lester was in. Kenny played. We had a drummer who ended up being my brother-in-law, the late Dwayne Garvin.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
The Funky Buzzard.
Yeah, the Funky Buzzard, yeah. He'd be drumming and everybody would holler out, "Get the Funky Buzzard some." So the Funky Buzzard got to get his bit in. You know how musicians do, But his mom, Flo Garvin, was a popular songstress and musician around the city,
Oh, yeah, of course. Very important artist. I think one of the first black women to headline a band and play in white clubs and really broke the mold here in Indianapolis.
Right. And, of course, Lester that had played with us. And then with his group, too, was a brother named Greg Scott.
Mousy. Is that Mousy Scott?
Yes, Mousy, yes, And so we enjoyed just moving around singing and going, and we thought we were really big shots when we loaded up and headed for Chicago and actually went into a studio to record a record. That was a big moment for us.
How did it feel hearing that record after all these years? You said you thought it went into obscurity and you saw that there was mention of it online.
Yeah, and I ordered it.
Yeah.
I went on and ordered it because I didn't know where mine was. The rest of the group, they didn't know either. We kind of, when we disbanded in the early '60s, we disbanded. One of the young ladies with us, or one of our friends, Elaine Brown, she moved to Arizona. She got married and moved to Arizona, and I went away to school, and Marge and Bev, they were here in town and got jobs at different corporations. So we didn't think anymore about putting a singing group together. We all, me, Margie, and Beverly, really grew up at the same church. And so anytime we were singing was in the choir, was in the church choir. And I guess that's where we figured God wanted us to be. And we did that for a while. Then, as I thought about continuing to put people on stage and enjoying that, putting people together who sing and who act. Presently, I'm a director of a theater company, Praise Stage Productions Theater Company, and I, again, am pulling people together to perform on stage. And most of the songs I write myself for the theater productions. And I think everything that we do in life sometimes, Kyle, has a purpose. I don't care how short a period of your life that you're engaged in it, it has a purpose. And I think the purpose of putting the Chordells together was certainly to prepare me for doing the things that I do in theater. The little ditties I write, the songs I write, and incorporate into that theater experience. It comes from my experience writing in the past, knowing what I could do, as a teenager, getting that experience, pulling people together, pulling a band and some folk together, and then getting them on the road to go and record. All that takes preparation. It takes organization, and you have to develop organization skills to even run a little singing group, So, I think even the period of time that we worked this and even cutting the record while you're ahead and all of those things, that was in our lives for a purpose.
That's a powerful way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had one final question for you, Miss McCane. We talked about the changes in the Martindale neighborhood where you grew up. Mm-hmm. Some of those changes are probably positive, but they're also, erasing part of the culture that existed there before.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you about the changes that have happened on the Avenue, where you spent a lot of time. You went to school in that neighborhood and performed at the Walker Theater. A lot of people in the community feel a sense of bitterness about the city's lack of concern.
History?
Right.
Yes.
Their lack of concern for this neighborhood and the history that happened and the people that were there living, lives for so many years. How do you feel looking back at this?
Yes, I feel that way to a degree as well, that sometimes newness erases history. And that there was a time when there were businesses, all kinds of businesses on the Avenue. You know what I'm saying? Black businesses. I went to before I went away to Philander. I went to beauty school, a beauty school that was there on the Avenue, Poro Beauty School. And at that time, there were all kinds of other businesses there, and restaurants, and beauty and barber schools, and just, all of that history has been erased. It is no more. And if we don't talk about it, every now and then we don't talk about it and remind people of what it used to be, folk will come along, the young people will come along behind us and not know that there was ever an Indiana Avenue. You see what I'm saying?
Of course. No, very well said. You mentioned all the businesses, the schools. What was it like for you to be on the Avenue at that time? Was it an exciting place to be?
It was, but I think maybe at our age at the time, even when we performed at this one club, I can't even remember the name of that club, Lester says he thinks it was the Pink Poodle.
That's where a lot of the big R&B stars played. Tuffy Mitchell ran the club.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is we did a gig there once, and toward the end of our Chordell career, if you will. And so you talk about, was it exciting? It was just life for us. Maybe, there was excitement, but it just seemed like the norm, for us to be there and to be a part of that scene. And I think history seems to, if it gradually disappears, people don't even notice. A lot of people don't notice that gradual disappearing till they look up one day and everything's gone and has been changed tremendously. And the businesses and the life that was there before has been erased.
Do you feel any bitterness about that? Do you have any sort of emotions about that, or you just accept that's what happened and that's the way it is?
I guess I'm the kind of person, after something has happened, that's the way it is. I'm a realist enough to know that money is power. Money and position is power. So there are many things you can do things about. One thing we would like to do, I'm sure, is to constantly remind people of what that era was about, and that black people had our own things there, our own businesses, our own lives there at that time, and that we want our young people to know that it existed. Even when things are erased away, we want some sense of remembering that it was there. Does that make sense?
Of course. There are a lot of conversations happening now about how the city should move forward in managing this neighborhood in its future. What would you like to see happen that would be respectful of that history?
Well, I'd have to think on that
sure,
a minute.
Of course,
I'd have to. It's just something that I would have to think of. I'd certainly like to keep something there that is a forever reminder of our ownership, if you will, of that era and of that the period that we speak of now as history. I'd like to see us claim the ownership. I hear, there's certainly truth in it about the Walker Theater. How much of the Walker Theater can we still claim? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You've probably done research and you realize, what they're saying about that's our history.
Ms. McCane, I'm so appreciative of you taking time to speak with me today. Any final thoughts you want to add about your time with the Chordells and this time in your life playing on the Avenue, going to attics? Any final thoughts you want to add?
I'm glad that we experienced all of that. I wouldn't trade that experience of working with the Chordells and singing around, even from the house parties all the way to the Walker or whatever. We even did a couple of gigs at the universities around here. Did one at Purdue University one year. And I wouldn't trade any of that, Kyle, for anything, because it was a rich experience. And I guess the older we get and the more we remember back and the more we realize that we have incorporated a lot of that knowledge and experience and that history into the things that I'm doing now, the richer it becomes.
That was Ethel McCane of the Chordells speaking with WFYI's Kyle Long. Let's listen to the Chordells' 1962 recording, Yeah, Yeah, I Was Blind.
You're so cruel, shattered all my dreams and
Echoes of Indiana Avenue will return after this short break. This is Butch Slaughter, and you're listening to Echoes of Indiana Avenue. On this week's show, we're paying tribute to the legendary girl groups of Indiana Avenue. During the late 50s and early 1960s, girl groups like the Chordells, the Crystals, the Supremes, and the Marvelettes dominated the top 40 charts. Naptown produced its own wave of talented girl group acts, and we're going to listen to one of these groups now. This is the Indys with their Lamp Records release, Another Weekend.
Gee, another weekend. Still ain't got nobody. I really blew coming to this town. I wish I was at home. Another Friday night, she ain't got nobody. She got some money 'cause she just got paid. Oh, how I wish she had someone to talk to. She's in an awful mood. Let me tell you about it. I got in town a week ago. I've seen a lot of boys since then. If I can meet 'em, I can get 'em. But yet I haven't met 'em, so that's why I'm in this awful bed. Whoa, it's another Friday night. She ain't got nobody. She got some money 'cause she just got paid. Oh, I wish she had someone to talk to. She's in an awful mood. Dig this. This other girl told me she had a brother that looked so fine. So fine. Instead of being my type, he had a disposition like a cat named Frankenstein. Oh, it's another Friday night. She ain't got nobody. She got some money 'cause she just got paid. Oh, how I wish she had someone to talk to. She's in an awful mood. It's hard on a girl when she don't know her way around. If I don't find me a honey to help me spend my money, then I'm gonna have to leave this town. Oh, it's another Friday night. She ain't got nobody. She got some money 'cause she just got paid. Oh, how I wish she had someone to talk to. She's in an awful mood. Gee, another weekend. And I still ain't got nobody. Well, far back home in Indianapolis, I have two dudes swinging on my arm. We be dancing, having all kinds of fun. Oh, yeah. Whoa, it's another Friday night, and I ain't got nobody. I got some money 'cause it just got paid. Oh, how I wish I had someone to talk to. I'm in an awful mood. Oh, it's another Friday night, and I ain't got nobody. I got some money 'cause it just got paid.
That was the Indys with Another Weekend. And this week on Echoes of Indiana Avenue, we're paying tribute to the legendary girl groups of Indiana Avenue. In just a moment, we'll listen back to a 2018 interview WFYI's Kyle Long recorded with Pam Tanner of the Pearls. But first, let's listen to the Pearls' classic Lamp Records release, Can I Call You Baby?
Hey boy, can I call you baby? Baby,
That was the legendary Naptown girl group The Pearls with their Lamp Records release, Can I Call You Baby? In 2018, WFYI's Kyle Long spoke with Pam Tanner, an original member of The Pearls. They discussed her early years singing with the Roulettes and how her work with The Pearls led her to joining the Ebony Rhythm Funk campaign.
Did you grow up in the city?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Born and raised right there.
Did you go to Attucks?
I sure did.
Yeah. Were you singing in the choir and part of the music program over there?
No. This is what's so funny. I played an instrument. I played clarinet.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Uh-huh. I started on the little plastic little flute thing in maybe 4th, 5th grade. And I went from that to the clarinet. And I played actually all through school. I played music. I was in the marching band. I was in the orchestra. I was in the all-city orchestra. And I played my instrument all through school. And it wasn't until just about when my senior year started, when I started my senior year, that I realized that what I really wanted to be doing was singing. Yep, I played a musical instrument all the rest of my time, like I said, from 4th or 5th grade all the way through junior high and most of high school.
So you would have studied with both Mr. Merrifield and Mr. Brown in the band?
Mr. Newsom and Mr. Brown.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure that gave you the foundation to go on and have the kind of achievements you did in music. Was that important for you in kind of developing your musical skills, studying with these great masters at Attucks?
Oh, I loved that. I loved playing an instrument. I loved marching in the marching band and playing in the orchestra. I loved all of that. But like I said, off and on, I was doing little singing stuff, and I just realized that what I really wanted to be doing was singing. But all of that musical background that I got playing my instrument, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Gotcha. So how did, from the realization that you wanted to be a singer to joining the Roulettes, can you kind of fill in the gap there of how you got to point A to point B?
Well, there was an organization called Designated Production, and that organization they were starting all kind of different groups. They had 3 or 4 bands. They had all kinds of singing groups. They had a duet, Henry and Joseph.
Yeah, the Sentimentals,
who were phenomenal. And so when I heard about that, and I can't remember how I got in touch with Rudy and those guys that were running Designated, but I did. I got hooked up with them, and that's when they're the ones that put the Roulettes, the group, together. The Roulettes, and they're the ones that had Alan King and the Pearls, and they had all these different groups and all these different bands, and it was like just a big musical family of groups and bands. And that's how I got started with the Roulettes.
Yeah, they saw you had talent and interest, and they brought you into the fold of Designated. Yeah, and so can you talk to me about how the Roulettes ended and how you came to sing with Alan King and the Pearls?
Well, as I can recall, we kind of started because the Roulettes was me and Denise Grissom and who else? And Denise Grissom went off to sing background for Stevie Wonder. And that's because, that was the good thing about Designated. It was like Rudy and some of the other guys, they all knew people in the business. Rudy's cousin was Billy, what's Billy's last name, that played with the Spinners?
Yeah, Billy Henderson, yeah.
Right. Okay, that was Rudy's cousin. Then Rudy also knew Patti LaBelle. We got to meet her. They knew all these different, famous people, and we got to meet them and, pick their brains and, and so I think the Roulettes started to kind of disband once Denise went off to sing to sing background for Stevie Wonder. Rudy got her that gig. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you were looking for another opportunity, and they placed you with the Pearls. Is that right?
Yes, and that's when he put me with Alan King and the Pearls, because I forget what happened to the girl. One of the girls dropped out, and that's when he put me with Alan King and the Pearls.
And can you talk a little bit just generally about the kind of repertoire you would have been singing with these groups? I'm sure each one had their own distinct repertoire, but was it mostly kind of the popular Motown music of the day? I know Josephine told me that Rudy had the sentimental singing show tunes and a whole kind of wide variety of music. What were your groups singing?
Yeah. So, you know what? It was the same way with us.
Yeah.
Okay, because they wanted us to be well-rounded groups. They wanted us to be able to do groups. They wanted us to be able to do gigs for all black audiences, but they also wanted us to be able to do gigs for mixed audiences and for not just young people audiences, but older people as well. They wanted us to be able to do, all those different kinds of gigs. So we did some show tunes as well. We sure did. We did show tunes, and then we did all the, the Motown stuff and all of the popular music that was popular of the day.
Sure. And do you remember what year roughly it would have been that you joined the Roulettes? I think you made your record in the Pearls. I think you made your record in 70. Did you join? Do you remember what year you joined up with the Pearls? That's tough to pin down, right?
That is tough to pin down. But if we did that in the 70s, because we had been singing together for a few years, so it had to be late 60s.
Gotcha, yeah. And you were...
yeah, because I was still in high school.
Okay. What year did you graduate?
I was still in high school. I graduated in 70.
In 70. Oh, wow. So you were a teenager when you were making those records. Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. I was a kid. When I started with Designated Productions. I was still in school.
And were you singing out at the nightclubs at this time? Even though you were underage, were you singing at some of the clubs on the Avenue and around Indianapolis?
Oh, you know what? We did mostly gigs like at the BFW halls and stuff like that, when people would give, dances. We did mostly like dances. We would do, every once in a while we would do a club, but it's only because we had supervision and our parents knew that we were being supervised. Okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they knew we were being supervised. But we were doing club gigs, but we were supervised. Okay? Our parents knew that Rudy and them were looking out for us. And they did. They did. They looked out for us and made sure that we didn't get up to any business we weren't supposed to be getting up to, okay? Yeah. So we were doing some club gigs.
Is there a show from your time in the Pearls that stands out in your mind as maybe like the biggest show you ever played or a really significant show you played with the group?
You know what stands out in my mind the most is when I graduated, because my mother told me, she said, "You're not going on the road, no ma'am, not until you graduate." Okay. So once I graduated, I handed my mom my diploma and I said, "See you." And that's what sticks out in my mind the most, was when us and the Ebony Rhythm Band, okay, we went on a 6-week little tour of the East Coast. We went to Buffalo, New York. We went to Rochester, New York. We went to Boston. Where else did we go? Did we go to Canada? But we were all over there along the East Coast, and that's what stuck out in my mind the most, was the first time we actually went on tour, us and the Ebony Rhythm Band. And it was a chitlin circuit. Yeah. It was a chitlin circuit. And that's how we ran into Ohio Players and
Funkadelic, right? Lester told me in Boston. You guys were in the same hotel.
Funkadelic. Yeah, when we were in Boston, we went to hear them because, see, at that time they were still basically pretty much an underground group. Yeah. Okay. And we heard they were playing, and we went and saw them play and hung out with them, and so that's the part of that sticks out the most in my mind, was when we went on that Chitlin Circuit tour.
Sure.
right after I graduated.
And I guess I never thought about it like this, but that's probably how you also became a member of Ebony Rhythm Band, because you were singing, they were backing you on this tour, and you had some chemistry and kept it going.
Yep. And look, they did not want a female in the group.
Really?
They did not want a female in the group. Nope. Because they said females are too much trouble.
Oh, no.
You got too much stuff to deal with when you're dealing with a female, yada, yada, yada. But I fixed it, so I made them hire me. I told them, I said, you guys are going to hire me, whether you want to or not, okay? So just get ready for it, because I'm going to join the group. I'm going to join the group. And I was not hearing nothing else, okay? And finally they hired me, because I told them, I said, look, I'm not looking to get pregnant. I'm not looking to get married. I'm looking to get out there and get on the road and play music. And I finally convinced them that my head was in the game, and they finally hired me. I told them, I'm not going away till you hire me.
So you had to make a logical case in addition to impressing them musically. You had to kind of fight through all these stigmas and prejudices they had.
I did.
Wow.
I did, because they did not want a female in the group. Okay, they knew talent-wise I was ready, and I could do it. Okay. But it was the fighting through all of the other stuff, because they did not want a female in the group.
Wow.
Yeah. And I told them, I'm not going away. I'm not going away. You guys are going to hire me one day. Watch.
They
did.
Did you immediately start doing original music when you joined with them, or what was kind of the band's live show like at that time?
Yes, they always did original music. They always did original music. Yeah, I mean, we were playing all the top 40 junk and all that stuff, but their heads were always into writing music.
And
always.
Obviously, it's a phenomenal group of musicians. I think largely unheralded in terms of just the amazing skill each one of them had. But what was it about the band particularly that you were so dead set on joining this group? What was it about them musically that pulled you in?
They were the baddest thing in town, honey. I had never seen musicians that played like them, and they were so dedicated, to the music. And they just, I don't know, man. They were just, they just blew me away. The musicianship that they had, and I just knew that I had to be a part of that group. I had to be. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yep. And I just knew that they were going to make it. I knew that they were going to make it. And I wanted to go along for that ride. I really did. They were the baddest group in town to me. Okay. And they had a lot of guys. It's so much talent and so much entertainment that came out of there. But they were pioneers, because all the rest of the groups, none of the rest of the groups were playing original music.
Right.
They were all just basically top 40 show bands, and Ebony they stuck to their guns. I mean, we were like, we'll play that stuff because we had to in order to gig, but we stuck to our guns, and we were always going to play some original music in there with that top 40 stuff. And, and they were very, very dedicated to writing and arranging and playing original music. And I love that about them. We were pioneers, and we were rebels. we were rebels, but I like that about the group.
That was Pam Tanner of the Pearls speaking with WFYI's Kyle Long. Let's listen to the Pearls' 1970 Lamp Records release, Shooting High.
Before
This is Butch Slaughter, and you're listening to Echoes of Indiana Avenue. On this week's show, we've been paying tribute to the legendary girl groups of Indiana Avenue. Let's wrap things up with music from the Stovall sisters. The Stovall sisters started their career as children, singing gospel music on Indiana Avenue under the name of God's Little Wonders. In the 1960s, the Stovall sisters relocated from the Avenue to the West Coast. In 1969, they found fame singing backup on the Norman Greenbaum hit Spirit in the Sky. The notoriety they gained from that release allowed the Stovall sisters to record their own LP in 1971, titled Hang On In There. This is the Stovall sisters with their version of Spirit in the Sky. Thanks for joining us on this trip down Indiana Avenue. You can meet me here again next week, same time, same place. Echoes of Indiana Avenue is written and produced by Kyle Long and hosted and co-produced by me, Butch Slaughter.
Nobody knows on uptown, baby, like I do. Nobody knows on uptown, baby, like I do. If you will stop and listen, I will tell you a thing or two. When you get